I've got to admit, I'm very happy to see the back of Jadon Sancho. He can go to Juventus, he can go to Chelsea. I'm sick of him.
I don't know, I think Sancho, he hasn't proved himself in the Premier League. He still has that little something about him. I just feel like Man United ain't the place for him to be.
Before Sancho came in, I was a bit critical. I was like, yo, why are we getting Sancho? We don't need him. He just ain't fit for the English style of play. Enough energy just for the Prem in general, but he's proved me wrong. He's come in and he's been good, so I'd have to say Sancho.
From being one of the Golden Boy nominees to a rebellious player, Jadon Sancho's story has been full of ups and downs. But one thing he never did was give up. As we can see now, he's back to playing his best football. But what if I told you that the main reason for his failure was not because of him not training or a bad attitude, but something more tactical? And the reason as to why he plays so well now is also tactical. Well, let's get into it. And what better way to do so than to go back to where it all started? If you were asked today where you know Sancho from, most would say from Dortmund. Well, before all the magic at Dortmund, Sancho was part of Manchester City's youth setup. He started there with the likes of Foden, Brahim Diaz, and, you guessed it, Palmer. Though he was still in the under-18s, and let me tell you, the hype around Sancho was real even back then. City saw him as one of their top prospects, but could not offer him proper game time. That sounds like someone else's story. But here's the thing, Sancho wanted more than just being part of the academy. He wanted first-team football. He wanted it now, and City wasn't ready to give him that yet. They had a stacked squad and honestly didn't seem to have a clear plan for him. So in 2017, when he was just 17 years old, Sancho made a bold move. Instead of waiting around, he took matters into his own hands and left for Borussia Dortmund. City tried to keep him, but Sancho saw an opportunity in Germany to get real playing time and develop faster. It was a risk. Most English players at that time never left England because it was their comfort zone, but man did it pay off. Sometimes betting on yourself is the best thing you can do, and Sancho proved that by moving to Borussia Dortmund. Sancho headed to Germany, and within months, he was turning heads. It didn't take long for him to make his mark, scoring his first Bundesliga goal against Bayer Leverkusen in October 2018, and also holding the title of the first ever English player to play for Dortmund. From then on, it was like watching a star being born, and by the time he was 19, Sancho had already made history. He became the youngest player in Bundesliga history to reach 25 goals, a record that put him in a league of his own. It was clear that Dortmund was the perfect playground for him. And let's not forget the 2019-20 season, when Sancho hit 20 goals and 20 assists in all competitions. The trick is a chemistry with Haaland. It felt like they were unstoppable together, creating moments that made Dortmund fans believe anything was possible. At Dortmund, Sancho wasn't just another young talent, he was a game changer. Manchester United saw all of this and decided that they wanted him. Well, after an unsuccessful transfer window of trying to get him, the next transfer window, he made his move to Manchester United. When Jadon Sancho arrived at Manchester United, the excitement was real. I mean, United spent a lot of money on him, and for a moment, it looked like it was all going to be worth it. His first few games? Well, pretty solid. He showed glimpses of why they broke the bank for him. His first Champions League goal came against Villarreal, and then he followed that up with his first Premier League goal in an iconic moment against Chelsea. Things were looking bright, but then it was like the lights went out. After those early flashes of brilliance, he just kind of disappeared. He ended his first season with 5 goals and 3 assists, which, let's be honest, was way below the standards we had for him, especially after his Dortmund days. But because he was United's golden boy, the fans stayed patient. They thought, alright, maybe under a proper manager we'll see the real Sancho. Then Erik ten Hag came in, and boom, there was hope again. Sancho looked sharp, even scoring against Liverpool in a huge game. You could almost feel that this was going to be the turning point, but guess what? The same thing happened. He vanished. No consistency, no spark, nothing like the player we saw at Dortmund. That's when things started to get weird. Then weeks later, Ten Hag held a press conference where he said Sancho wasn't mentally or physically fit to play. It was clear something wasn't right. Still, the fans held on. United gave him time, and Sancho even went to Amsterdam for some secret training sessions to get back into form. And when he returned, we saw flashes of his best in a couple of games. But yeah, it didn't last, and he just was kept on the sideline, watching from the bench. Then things came to a head after the Arsenal game. Ten Hag said Sancho was lazy in training, and instead of staying quiet, Sancho fired back on Instagram, publicly denying it. That was the start of some serious internal beef in the team. Ten Hag wanted an apology, but Sancho refused. And just like that, he was completely sidelined. Sancho went from being the golden boy to someone who was stuck on the bench for a long time. All because of that fallout. It's crazy how quickly things went downhill. But then months later, Sancho will pull off one of the craziest comebacks in football. He made a loan move back to Borussia Dortmund, and you could see the difference right away. He was all smiles again, and on the pitch we started seeing flashes of the old Sancho, the one who lit up the Bundesliga before his Premier League struggles. It was like he'd never left. People were quick to jump on the narrative that maybe he just wasn't built for the Premier League, but Sancho had other plans. He shut everyone up, especially with his performances in the Champions League. His game against PSG? That was pure magic. That night he had one of the highest ball-carrying percentages in the competition, gliding through defenders like it was second nature. That's the Sancho we all missed. He was part of the squad that pushed Dortmund all the way to the Champions League final, reminding everyone why he was once considered one of the best young talents in Europe. The big question, though, was still hanging in the air. Why didn't it work at Manchester United? How could a player who thrived at Dortmund fail to bring that same spark to Old Trafford? But while everyone was asking those questions, one person was keeping a close eye on Sancho. An old coach who knew just how good Jadon could be. The question now wasn't just about whether Sancho could redeem himself. It was about where he'd finally unlock that potential for good. And this coach was ready to risk it all. Meanwhile, Chelsea had been having a real problem with their left wing. Sure, they were stacked with right-wing side options, but the left? Well, that's a whole different story. Raheem Sterling had been the guy, but he was slowly phased out by Enzo Maresca. Well, why? Because Sterling wasn't really fitting into the vision Enzo had for the team. Sterling's style was more cutting inside, which was less intricate, and wasn't exactly what Enzo wanted in his tactical setup. Then there was Mykhailo Mudryk, who has all the potential in the world, but let's face it, he was still developing and hadn't truly delivered the consistent performances Chelsea needed on that left wing. It was a position begging for someone to step up. So when Enzo turned to Sancho, everyone was shocked. Why would he go after a player who had just flopped at Manchester United? The move didn't make sense to a lot of people. But here's the thing. Enzo knew something most people didn't. He knew why Sancho had struggled at Manchester United, and more importantly, he knew how to get the best out of him. Sancho wasn't just some random gamble from Enzo. He was a calculated signing. Enzo understood that Sancho's struggles at United were tactical mismatches, not a lack of talent. So what really did Enzo know that the rest of us missed? Well, before we talk about what he saw, please take a minute to subscribe to the channel. We have a goal to hit 10k before December, and your subscription will have a great impact to that. Thank you. Alright, here's the deal. Sancho wasn't being used the right way under Ten Hag. At Dortmund, Sancho was more of a ball hugger, a player who loved give-and-go situations. He was always looking to feed the ball to someone and get it right back. That's where he thrived. But at Manchester United, the wingers they needed were all about speed, players who could charge at the backline with pace and power. Sancho, though, doesn't have that kind of raw speed. What he does have is incredible close control, the type that lets him dribble through tight spaces and pick out passes in a heartbeat. But here's the problem. United's system didn't play to those strengths. They needed wingers who could fly up the pitch, not someone who wanted to combine and look for intelligent movement off the ball. Before joining United, Sancho had that close relationship with Haaland at Dortmund. They had this almost telepathic connection. Sancho would give the ball to Haaland, and Haaland would return it to him instantly, letting him get involved in quick plays. At United, the wingers were tasked with all the responsibility, and that just didn't fit Sancho's style. But that's where Enzo Maresca comes in. Enzo's system is designed to play to Sancho's strengths. He doesn't need Sancho to change his style. Why? Because now he has quality players around him. In Enzo's setup, Sanchez doesn't have to do too much on his own. Chelsea's system features two dynamic number 8s who can help Sancho create those give-and-go situations he loves. Another key part? The way that Enzo inverts the left back allows Sancho to link up and bounce passes with them, just like he used to at Dortmund. One more thing that really hurt Sancho at United was his falling out with Ten Hag. That relationship falling apart crushed his confidence, and it showed in his performances. So what did Enzo do when he brought him to Chelsea? Well, the first thing was to make Sancho feel loved again. Enzo even said it in a press conference. He wanted Sancho to feel valued. and it worked. Sancho admitted that he felt loved and supported, and now we're seeing him play some of his best football again. It's not just tactics, it's about bringing confidence and being in the right environment. Enzo knew that, and now Sancho is thriving, and we can see that in his game, with him having 3 assists in just 3 games. It's not really impressive, but wait till he really gets his confidence back. Thank you for watching this video, and if you want to see how Enzo Maresca is bringing Chelsea back to its glory days, please click this link.